So when you hear the phrase, give your child total freedom, what is your immediate reaction?
I mean, for most of us, it's absolute nightmare fuel.
Right, you just get these instant visions of, like, some smashed plates, sibling brawls, and just total unmitigated chaos.
Exactly. Because we're so conditioned to think of freedom as the literal opposite of discipline.
We really are. But welcome to the deep dive. Today's mission is to unpack Chapter 4 of Maria Montessori's groundbreaking book, The Discovery of the Child.
Specifically, we're looking at the section on pedagogical methods used in the children's houses.
Yeah, and we want to figure out how to translate those core concepts into, our daily routines at home. Because the absolute center of this chapter is this massive, honestly, kind of baffling paradox,
It really is. The source text argues that there is absolutely no true discipline without freedom.
which is wild,
Right. Like they aren't opposing forces. You literally cannot have one without the other.
which just challenges basically everything we are taught about authority and parenting. We're going to explore how a 4-year-old can have total freedom, yet somehow exhibit more inner discipline than a soldier.
It's a profound shift.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can apply this Montessori version of freedom at home, we first have to understand why our traditional view of discipline is just fundamentally flawed, according to the source material.
Yeah, the critique here is incredibly sharp. Montessori uses this really vivid, honestly somewhat disturbing analogy.
The butterfly one, right?
Yes, exactly. She says that traditional schooling treats children like butterflies, but instead of allowing these beautiful, dynamic creatures to fly and develop their wings, we pin them to a board.
God, that is such a visceral image.
It really sticks with you.
It does. You take something that's meant to move and explore, and you just like impale it to keep it stationary for your own convenience.
Right. And in traditional settings, those pins are things like fixed desks or school bells dictating exactly when you're allowed to speak.
Or when you have to be quiet, or when you can eat.
Exactly. It's a system where the teachers act less like guides and more like, well, jailers enforcing
But
compliance.
let's be real, right? When we see a classroom of kids sitting perfectly quiet, staring straight ahead, our cultural instinct is to be like, wow, what a disciplined group of children.
Sure, we praise it. But the text argues that we are completely misinterpreting what we're seeing. We are mistaking paralysis for discipline.
Paralysis. That's a heavy word for a quiet classroom.
But that's what she calls it. When kids are quiet in a highly controlled system, they aren't disciplined. They're experiencing paralysis driven by two distinct external forces, which are fear and greed.
Okay. Fear of what?
Fear of the stick.
Yeah.
You know, punishments, timeouts, scolding, bad grades,
And the greed.
greed for rewards, gold stars, stickers, praise from the adults.
So she's introducing this concept of biological liberty, right? Let's break down what that actually means, because it sounds like the total opposite of the pin.
It is. Biological liberty is a child's right to grow naturally. Think of it like a plant needing space and light to develop. To achieve this, Montessori insists on the absolute abolition of rewards and punishments.
Okay, I have to push back here on behalf of basically everyone listening.
Go for it.
Logistically, that sounds like a total disaster. If we abolish punishments and rewards, no timeouts, no sticker charts, no threatening to take away the iPad, why would a child ever listen to us?
It's the most common question.
Right, like how does this actually work in a real house?
Well, the text explains that children actually have a profound capacity for what she calls inner discipline.
Inner discipline.
Yeah. When you give them freedom of movement and the ability to choose an activity that genuinely satisfies their curiosity, they naturally become calm and focused.
So instead of us imposing order, the order comes from the work itself.
Exactly. Defiance is usually just friction against arbitrary adult control. When you remove the micromanaging, you remove the friction. The joy of accomplishment becomes the only true reward.
I mean, I see the logic, but let's talk about the moments when they do test the limits. Because if we aren't using fear or stickers, how do we keep the house from turning into a free-for-all?
Well, that's the thing. Freedom is not chaos.
Right, which leads us to the boundaries,
Because there are boundaries, yeah.
very strict ones. There's a golden rule outlined in the text. A child's freedom stops the absolute second they do one of three things.
Okay, what are the three things?
They harm themselves, they harm others, or they disturb their peers or the environment.
Let's get really practical with this. Let's say a toddler gets mad and throws a hard plastic cup at the wall. Or, turns around and hits their sibling.
The freedom ends immediately.
But how? If I'm not putting them in a timeout, how do I stop it?
You step in and provide a firm physical boundary. You don't yell or shame them. You just calmly block the hit or take the cup and say, cups are not for throwing. I won't let you hit.
So you're enforcing a physical reality, not a psychological punishment. Precisely. But here's the hard part for parents. Any behavior outside of those 3 restrictions must be allowed, no matter how bizarre or tedious it seems to the adult.
And the source material has some wild examples of this.
It really does.
Like if your child wants to just sit flat on the floor in the hallway to read a book, instead of on the nice expensive chair you bought them.
You let them sit on the floor.
Right. Or there's that part about if they want to spend an entire hour just polishing their shoes.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Yes. The adult ego hates that. We want to say, okay, the shoe is clean. Let's move on. We have places to be.
Or if you're out for a walk and they just stop to stare at a single ant walking by for 20 minutes.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that when an adult dictates everything, like wear this, walk faster, stop looking at that the child never learns responsibility.
Because they're just executing our commands.
Right. They're a passive object. But when the child chooses how to spend their time, they take ownership of their actions. Freedom is the flip side of responsibility.
So this translates to daily routines. By letting them choose their clothes, their toys, how long they scrub a potato in the sink. Freedom is just the power to choose within that framework of respect.
Exactly.
But wait, if the parent is no longer handing out sticker charts and we aren't dictating playtime or giving constant orders, what exactly is our role?
It's a huge shift.
I mean, we can't just sit on the couch and scroll on our phones, right?
No, not at all. The traditional adult role is what the text calls a lecturer, someone who talks while the kids passively listen.
Right.
But in Montessori, the adult is a directress or a guide. You are directing the child's natural energy rather than dictating it.
And there's this really beautiful analogy the source uses for this, right?
Yes. It compares the adult's role to an astronomer observing the stars.
An astronomer.
Think about it. Parents must meticulously observe each child. What do they love? What do they hate? Exactly when is the right time to introduce a new puzzle or activity?
So you're studying them.
You're watching them with the objective fascination of an astronomer looking at a constellation. You don't try to move the stars. You just observe them to understand their patterns.
That actually makes me think of, like, a nature documentary filmmaker.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, think about a traditional parenting style. It's kind of like a micromanaging corporate boss, right? Hovering over your shoulder saying, type the email this way, do it faster.
Right, which just spikes everyone's cortisol.
Exactly. But the Montessori parent is the documentary filmmaker. You're out in the wild, sitting perfectly still in the tall grass, just intensely watching the wildlife to understand its patterns.
That's a perfect parallel.
And the cardinal rule of wildlife filmmaking is that you refuse to step in and alter the environment just to make the shot easier. You don't interfere.
Yes. But that brings up the most difficult practical issue for a parent. Being the filmmaker is great when the kid is happily playing.
Right.
But what happens when you're observing and you see them doing something wrong? Or really struggling with the task?
Oh, man. This is where it gets so hard. The text calls this the art of non-intervention.
It is incredibly difficult to master.
Because it means suppressing every biological instinct we have to jump in and fix things. Let's say you're watching your kid try to button their coat.
Oh, the coat buttoning. A classic struggle.
Right. They've misaligned the buttons, they're fumbling, it's taking 10 minutes, and you just want to get out the door. The urge to gently swat their hands away and say, here, let me just do it. It's overwhelming.
It is. Because overbearing love and just the fear of seeing our kids struggle makes us want to micromanage. We think we're helping.
But we aren't.
No. We are depriving the child of the immense thrill of discovery. There is a deep learning that only comes from self-correction.
So we just have to bite our tongues and let them button it wrong.
If they aren't in danger, yes. You have to know when to intervene based on those safety boundaries we talked about, and crucially, when to just disappear. Let them feel the physical reality of the mistake.
And then the satisfaction of fixing it themselves.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, suppressing the urge to correct a child's minor mistakes is what builds a foundation of confident, self-reliant adults.
Instead of what?
Instead of repressed individuals who are constantly waiting for an authority figure to tell them what to do, because they were never allowed to practice fixing their own mistakes.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's distill this for everyone listening.
Yeah, let's bring it home.
To bring Montessori home, you have to realize that freedom isn't a lack of rules. It is the ultimate tool for responsibility.
Absolutely.
You set firm boundaries around safety and respect. You ditch the constant rewards and punishments. You become an astronomer or a filmmaker of your child's interests.
And you practice that agonizing but beautiful art of letting them make harmless mistakes. You protect them from repression, not from harmless struggles.
Exactly. And I want to end with a final thought for you to chew on today. Something that takes this whole concept and turns it back on us as adults.
I love this part.
If a child's natural state, when they are given true biological liberty, is deep, peaceful focus,
Right.
how much of our own adult anxiety or our restlessness or our total lack of focus is just a lingering symptom of our own schooling?
It's a really heavy question to sit with.
What if the reason we can't focus today is because when we were kids, we were never just allowed to polish a shoe for an hour or watch an Anne in peace?
We were pinned to the board.
We were pinned to the board.
Hey,
So what would it look like to grant yourself a little bit of Montessori freedom today?